So, hello and welcome. I'm Callum, the Head of Managed Services here at GHM Communications. Thank you for joining us this morning to discuss the phishing threats posed to care homes in 2023. And I'm joined here today by Nicola Sloan, who's our UK Partnerships Manager at Friendly Phishing, who are our trusted partner at GHM for delivering phish threat security. So in terms of what we'll be covering this morning, we'll start with what is phishing. So we'll be going through in much more detail about what exactly this is, the consequences of being reeled in by a phishing email, the types of phishing attacks. Sadly, there are many different flavors of phishing attacks. And we'll also show you some examples of phishing emails and what to look out for, how you can turn the tide, and exactly how you can educate your staff and residents. We'll also have some time at the end, hopefully for a Q&A. So I ask if you've got any questions throughout the webinar, please pop them in the Q&A section and we'll do our absolute best at the end to clear them all up. We'll also be emailing you with a useful ebook after the webinar that contains loads of other great tips that you can share with your team. I will now pass you over to Nicola, but we'll join you again right at the end of the webinar to cover off the Q&A section. Okay, enjoy.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining our phishing threat session this morning. I'm looking forward to sharing some information with you about all things phishing. I realise that we're going to have lots of different people with varying knowledge in this area on the call today. So we're going to keep things quite basic and we're going to aim for you to come away from the session with a really great idea of how to recognise a phishing email, what to do when you receive a phishing email, how to report it. I'm also going to tell you about the different types of phishing emails that there are out there and the various dangers that these types of, or interacting with these types of emails presents as well. Okay. So before we actually go into too much more detail, I'd like to address the big question that we get asked daily by customers when we're talking to them about our type of training for phishing. And that is, if we've got security technology in place already, and when I talk about security technology, I do mean, of course, endpoint security, mail filters, firewalls, patching of outdated software. If all of that's in place, you know, surely that's going to stop these phishing attacks from coming through and reaching our employees. The fact of the matter is that, yes, these types of technology are absolutely essential, but even with the best security infrastructure in place, we know that around 15% of phishing emails will still be able to penetrate even the most sophisticated defenses. So today we'll look at the human element. That's your your final form of defense, and what to do when emails bypass technology. Okay. What's a phishing email? What is phishing? What's a cyber criminal? Well, essentially, cyber criminals are just really, really great actors. And what they're going to try to do is they're going to send you an email to try and persuade the recipient to do something that they shouldn't. And that's going to be one of three things. So it could either be clicking on a link within an email, downloading an attachment, or entering credentials, which could be a password, it could be user details or bank details. Okay. And unknowingly, when you interact with one of these emails, you could either be logging on to a malicious website or you could be downloading malware. Okay, so we're going to tell you a little bit more about how to avoid that from happening. But how big is the problem, and is it a problem that could be affecting you and your care homes? Okay, so we know that from the work that we've already done with a number of organisations, care homes specifically, we know that when an organisation first joins us, on average, around 30% of their employees will not be able to recognise a phishing email. So around 30% of employees generally will be a risk to the organisation through interacting with these types of attacks. We also know that after continuous security awareness training and testing of care home employees' knowledge, we're able to reduce the number of people that would interact with a phishing email down to around 5%. So that's how big the problem is at the moment. And I guess the consequences really for interacting with these types of attacks in a care home would be data loss. So criminals are able to access your systems and take data about your organisation, about your residents. Financial loss, reputational damage, because obviously we're dealing with people here. So if it's seen that an organisation is leaking information about their residents or their staff, then obviously that can affect the reputation of the company. The other danger is a data breach resulting in a fine. So even if a data breach is unintentional, if a cyber criminal is able to obtain information about employees who work within an organisation, or indeed residents that are there in a care home, then that could result in a fine. Okay, and then the final thing, of course, is the danger to residents' care, which is going to be probably the thing that should be at the top of the list for you guys. And the way that it could affect residents' care would be if all the systems, all your IT systems were locked down. Essentially, you wouldn't be able to reach emergency contact information or information about prescribed medicines and things like that, and the care for your residents there as well. So that's obviously the things that we're looking to avoid as well. So looking at the UK Government Cybersecurity Survey for 2022, we know that £2 billion was lost in the UK alone to phishing scams back in 2022. We know that 9 out of 10 data breaches started with human error, so majoritively that would be phishing emails. And then we also know that 6.4 million phishing scams were reported last year, so over 6 million scams in the UK alone. And phishing in the care industry, we know that cyber criminals are non-discriminatory. Many don't have much of a conscience, and so they will target organisations that they know will have a limited budget when it comes to support infrastructure. And we know that care homes will mainly be allocating funds towards operational necessities rather than cybersecurity measures. So we know that cyber criminals will actively seek out organisations that they think will be an easy target. So looking at phishing in the news over the last couple of years, you all would have seen examples of phishing attacks and how they've affected organisations. Royal Mail was a really big one a few months ago where they were hit by a ransomware attack. And we'll go on to talk about the different types of attacks in a few minutes, but they were hit by a ransomware attack, which meant that they were unable to send any parcels or letters abroad. So that was particularly problematic for Royal Mail and for the UK public as well, but probably very costly for them as well. Tesco's Bank, JD Sports have also been in the news over the last couple of years for cyber criminals being able to access information about customers and bank account details. British Airways is probably the most high profile attack that's been in the news recently. And that's where cyber criminals were able to access thousands of their customers' credit card details. As a result, they were investigated by the ICO, who investigate data breaches, and they were fined £183 million as a result. We've also seen a ransomware attack in the NHS back in 2022 that affected patient referrals, ambulance dispatches, mental health and prescriptions as well. So the different types of phishing emails that are out there at the moment. So there are the generic phishing emails or mass market emails. We call them spray and pray. These will be emails that are not specifically targeted at any individual. They will just be sent out to a huge number of people. So this, for example, could be an email saying your Amazon account has been compromised. You need to click on a link to pop in your details. So that's a general phishing email. A A spear phishing email is something that's more targeted. So this is where the cybercriminal will go after a specific person within an organisation. We know that the most highly targeted departments within organisations would tend to be finance, HR and C-level people. So a spear phishing attack could be, I can give you an example. It may be that an organisation is advertising for a new accounts person. So the cyber criminal will do their research using social media, probably LinkedIn, look on the company website. They'll search for the HR manager name and contact details. They could then send in a what looks like an attachment that is their CV to the HR manager applying for the position as accounts person. But actually, the attachment that should be the CV is a malicious attachment. So that's a spear phishing attack. Then we've got business email compromise or CEO fraud, and that's where the cyber criminal would pretend to be a high sort of C-level person within the organisation. So that could be your finance manager, your CEO, for example. And I'll give you an example of an attack that happened to one of our new customers actually before they joined us. Their CEO was actually off site attending an event, and he'd added details to his LinkedIn profile to say that he was attending the event. Cybercriminal managed to spoof or copy his email address or an email address that looked very similar to his, sent an email into his assistant and said, you know that I'm at so-and-so event today. I've seen some reward vouchers online. I'd like you to buy a number of them to reward staff members. So can you go onto this site, purchase these vouchers? And the assistant, unfortunately, very nearly went on and paid money into an account that they never would have received any vouchers back from. So it was a phishing scam. They were able to recognise it, fortunately, as well. Then we've got ransomware attacks. So we spoke a little bit about ransomware attacks previously because Royal Mail and the NHS were both victims of ransomware attacks in the last year. And this is where cybercriminal will find their way into the computer system, and they will lock down or encrypt all of the systems for an organisation and block all the access. And they'll ask for a reward for them to release all the information. So if you think about that happening within a care home environment, that would mean that you wouldn't be able to access any of your residents' personal details, any information about their prescriptions and emergency contacts and things like that, really. So think about how that could affect you. Vishing basically is voicemail phishing. So somebody contacting you via the telephone and asking you to disclose information on the telephone. And then SMS phishing, or smishing, if you will, is where the cyber criminal will contact you via a text message with a link in the text message asking you to click on a link. A really popular one at the moment is somebody sending a message saying, hi mum, I've lost my phone. I'm calling from my friend's phone. Can you just click this link for me? So just keep an eye out for all of those things, because it isn't just phishing just doesn't just happen via emails. So here are some examples of phishing emails. We know that if you receive an email and the person that's sending the email asks you to click on a link, one of the things that you need to do is hover over that link, and the actual destination that you're going to be taken to will appear. So the link, if the link is different when you hover over it to the link that's actually detailed in your email, like example number 1 here. So this says your bank, but this is not your real bank, okay? Then obviously you shouldn't click on that email. Here's another one. We mentioned the good old Amazon email. Your account's been deactivated due to suspicious activity. Please click on this link to verify that it's you. And then the third one here, and this is quite a good one actually. Many organisations will receive invoices. So this looks like it's from an invoice from a new company as well. So there's some examples of phishing emails. So how can we create behavioural change? How can we educate people to recognise these phishing emails and change the culture within your organisation to keep these types of attacks at bay? Well, the first thing that I would recommend is checking the sender. So does the email address look legitimate? Okay. If it doesn't, then you need to contact the sender, preferably by another means, either open a new email or make a phone call and check to see if it's legitimate. The second thing is check the content. Although cyber criminals are getting more and more sophisticated, unfortunately, many of them still don't know how to spell or use grammar within their emails. So take a look out for those red flags as well. Check the email for urgency as well. If somebody is asking you to click on a link or enter details and you need to do it within a certain time frame, then you just really need to step back and have a think about whether that's a legitimate email or not. Check the link, as I just mentioned before. If you hover over with your mouse, then you're going to find the true destination that link's going to be taking you to. If it's a different destination to the one that's detailed in the emails, then do not click on it and report it immediately. Check the attachment, then report the email. So don't forward the email, contact your support department or your IT manager or the company that manages your IT functions and let them know that you've received an email that you think is suspicious or malicious. Close the email and like I said to you before, call or email the person that you think has sent you that email and check for validity. So here are the top 10 tips from us at Friendly Phishing, and we want to help you embed training into your care home culture. So the first thing would be to explain to your employees and to your residents as to why you're introducing training on security awareness. Okay. It's really important to get buy-in from your employees and from your residents as well. Explain what the dangers are and that you're trying to protect them and the organisation. I would also say take an empathic approach. So, you know, most people, you know, or many people are not tech savvy, and that's not their fault. If they haven't been trained yet, then, you know, I think we really need to help people and, you know, really be very, very empathic when we're going about offering this training. Offer training that's engaging. You know, we do quite a lot of research on learning fatigue, and we know that most people will switch off when they're taking training after 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so offer short training courses and make the training relevant at all times. We recommend training quarterly to keep security awareness front of mind. We know that training once a year just won't hack it. People won't remember the training. It needs to be something that's constantly, you know, that they're constantly reminded of. We also recommend test user knowledge as well by simulating phishing attacks or send fake phishing emails from your organisation. See who will interact with them. When you send out these fake phishing attacks, we also recommend that you randomise the templates in there. So don't send the same phishing template out to everybody or the same email template out to everybody. Send different ones to each person and also stagger the delivery times as well of those emails. Give your employees and your residents a way of reporting suspicious looking emails as well. That's very, very important. Find a way to report on engagement with the training and the phishing test. So you want to get feedback on how people are enjoying the training, but you also want to know who's taken the training and who's interacted with these phishing tests as well. You need to log it and make it, again, you know, hold competitions. You know, the person that gets the highest score in training, offer them a box of chocolates or something. And I'd also say to add security awareness to your policies as well, so that people know that it's embedded in your, you know, within your company organisation policies as well. So that's really all I had to cover today. So thank you very much for listening to what we have to say. Callum will be taking any questions now. And then the next steps will be that Callum will be sending you some free tips as well, and organising any one-to-one conversations if people are looking for more information on this topic as well. Over to you, Callum.
Let me have a look. We do have plenty of time left. Q&A. There are some questions. How do you add new users if the training has already started? And will they have access to the training they missed? Good question.
So I'm guessing that's a specific question about our solution as well. So the solution that we have is online security awareness training that you can send out via our platform. With our platform, whenever somebody new joins the organisation, we have something called an auto enrol feature, which means that our system will recognise that they're new, and they will send them all the onboarding training that their colleagues would already have had. So it's an automatic process.
Okay. How many courses are there, and how long is each session? No, there's some new ones.
Good question. Yeah, so we have 78 training courses. You're probably not going to want to send 78 training courses out to everybody, but we want to offer lots of variety. All of our training courses are between 2 and 15 minutes in length. They're created for time-poor individuals, so they don't take people away from their day job too much. Like I said, we've got various different courses. Obviously, we train people in how to recognise phishing emails, but we also train people in the evolution of phishing. So we just spoke about voicemail phishing and SMS phishing and general social engineering. So we speak about that. We've also got training courses on how to be safe when using social media, laptop security, bring your own device to work. And we also have, which is really, really good as well, role-based courses as well. So we have courses that are specifically for those high targeted departments, including HR, finance and C-level employees as well.
Okay, there's a couple of others. Can this solution be used to support our cyber insurance or cyber essentials or cyber essentials?
Great question. Yeah, great question. So one of the criteria for cyber insurance and cyber essentials is that you train and test your staff regularly. And we know that if a data breach were to happen, okay, and an organisation were investigated by the Information Commissions Officer, which is the government body that checks out data breaches. They've said that if a company can prove that they train and test their users to avoid being phished, then that could mean that a fine is negated or reduced as well.
There's a couple more. I've got time for a couple more, if you don't mind. What would you say was the most common type of phishing email in care homes? Would you happen to know that?
Don't know. I don't know. I know that the most common type of phishing email is the generic phishing email, your spray and pray, your general ones. And we know that then after that, there would be the spear phishing attacks, so the one where you would target a specific department. And then after that, it would be probably ransomware attacks. Yeah. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay, let me just go to one or two others. On top of training, what do I need from a security hardware standpoint?
Security hardware standpoint, so security technology, really. Yeah.
I'd assume so, looking at that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that would be looking at mail filters, it would be looking at your firewall. Many organizations have implemented something called TDR, which is threat detection and response. So that's something that minimizes the consequences of data breaches and penetration through detecting these types of attacks very early on and remediating those attacks as well. Patching for outdated software is very important as well, and then endpoint security.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to back that up, as you say, it's always best to have a multi-layered approach. We find that that's the most effective strategy, if you like, to combat certainly phishing attacks. But yeah, if anything from managed firewall to endpoint management, as you say, and the reason for the webinar today is the user education and awareness programs is obviously vitally important.
Yeah.
That's it. We have time for one other. I think there's one other. If I quickly go back, bear with.
Okay.
We've got a couple of minutes. What's this one here? Has that already been asked? Is all of the training online thinking around shifts? Does everybody get the same tests? You mentioned different attacks and who sees the results? Sorry, that's quite a loaded question. Is all of the training online? I think it's one of the questions.
Yes, all the training.
They're thinking around the shift patterns.
There's a few different questions within the question, so let's just answer each section as we go along. So all the training is online, but we also have posters and things that you can put up around your organisation to support the online training as well. So that's the first one. The second one, I think, was about shifts, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Something about shifts.
Thinking around shift patterns. So is all the training online?
So when training is assigned, your employees will get 2 to 3 weeks to complete the training. So whether they're on a day shift, a night shift, or what have you, they've still got the same length of time to complete that training.
Okay. And does everybody get the same tests? And the other question is, who sees the results? And then that's
okay. So let's talk about the tests first. So you can choose to send training out to everybody within your organisation, but then you can have other, if you're talking about the phishing tests, you can choose to send certain phishing tests out just to certain departments or groups of people. So you might think, oh, I want to send a targeted phishing attack out to finance today. Or I want to send training out specifically just to the care workers within the home. So you can choose to send training or phishing tests out to everybody, or you can choose to send them to specific departments or specific groups of people. And we would certainly help with setting those groups up. And we also help set up all your phishing tests and recommend training that will work for your industry and that would be right for your specific organisation or care home as well.
Perfect. And that is all the questions we have, Nicola.
One thing to add, sorry, Callum, as well.
No, go on.
We also, for any organisation that joins us, we also have free home use courses as well. So that would include a course on how to create strong passwords, a course on how to recognise phishing emails, and a course on cyberbullying as well. So they're just 5-minute videos. You would be able to share all of those videos with your residents as well. So you are going to get your takeaway from today's session with your free hints and tips. But just to make you aware that we do offer these short videos that you can share with your residents in the care homes as well.
Perfect. Thank you. And as you rightly said earlier, I will follow up with your free ebook. So everybody attending the webinar today will see that in their email very soon. And please do get in touch if you've got any questions related to anything that you've heard on today's webinar, or if you want any more information. My contact details are here, or they will be attached to the ebook also. And if you'd like to know more, set up a one-to-one demo, then I'm here also. So please get in touch. And that's everything we have for you today. So thank you, Nicola, for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you all for attending.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Cheers. Bye-bye.